if the brain could talk. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Shower Podcast, the podcast where I'm in my shower and you do you. I'm your host, Chip, and I would like to welcome you officially to the last mini-series of the Shower Podcast project. Since we are so close to my desired goal of 365 days of consecutive podcasting, I thought to make it special. And I realized that throughout this year, something was missing from the podcast. Usually on podcasts, you have guests, but due to logistic problems, as you can see, my shower is not that big. We didn't have a chance to have guests on the podcast. But while thinking about all the things that we have discussed, there is somebody that could be part of our podcast, even though we will have to work with a bit of imagination. As you have seen from the title, this mini-series will be named "What If the Brain Could Talk?" And I really thought, what if parts of our brain, our motivation, dopamine, sleep, neuroplasticity, all topics that we covered across the year in the Shower Podcast, could give us some hints on how to work with them, how we are working against them, and overall to give us some insights on how to properly use our brain. Here on the screen right now, you will see the list of all participants, and also one of them will be highlighted. This is because this series will run over 7 episodes, and each episode will have a certain guest on the show. I deliberately didn't want to use AI for the voices. Let's say I still wanted to make it sound like all the other episodes of the Shower Podcast. So when the guest will be talking, you will hear a slight difference in my voice. I hope that you'll be able to enjoy it and that it will make it a bit fun and different to listen to. And overall, I believe that it was the right compromise. Having said that, that was all for today. Thank you very much for listening. If you made it so far and overall want to give a last push to the Shower Podcast, remember the liking and subscribing really mean a lot for me. And having said that, I will leave you directly with the interview and enjoy the episode.
Thank you very much for having me. As you said, I am indeed working memory. If you've ever walked into a room and forgotten why you're there, that was me waving a tiny white flag. I'm the mental space where you hold a thought long enough to do something with it, say like a sticky note you're trying not to drop, while you're also opening doors and answering questions.
Okay, so you're basically the reason I open my phone to check the time and somehow end up watching a video about a guy building a cabin with no nails. Gotcha. Respectfully, are you okay? Should we worry? What is the end purpose of what you do?
I should say that I'm a very small part of the brain. That's the honest headline. People grow up hearing the usual 7 plus or minus 2 ideas. I think that you also mentioned it once in the podcast. And it's a famous piece of psychology history. But when researchers strip away rehearsal tricks and look at the core limit, let's say what everybody has, it's often closer to a handful of items. Sorry to break it to you. And one influential line of work argues that the central capacity is about 4 chunks on average. And I say chunk on purpose because it means meaning can compress information. 4 random digits are 4 chunks. A familiar ear can become 1 chunk. Your brain isn't just storing, it's actually packaging.
That's both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because, well, not broken. I feel like now I can relate a bit more to what you're saying. But at the same time, it's kind of terrifying because I have been living like I have 40 slots.
Yeah, most people do. And it creates a lot of unnecessary guilt. I'm not a warehouse. I'm not an efficient way of storing information. I'm more like a workbench. When the bench is clear, you can build. When it's covered in tools, half-finished parts, and 3 different instructions, You keep bumping things onto the floor. Cognitive scientists have modeled me as having components that handle different kinds of material, like verbal information you can rehearse internally and visual spatial information you can hold in mind, with a control system that coordinates what stays active and what gets ignored. The details vary by model indeed, but the practical truth is stable. You can only keep so much in play at once before performance drops.
Okay, the workbench metaphor actually works pretty well, and I can understand why my brain feels like a desk in a teen movie. Papers everywhere, dramatic music, nothing gets done. So let me ask you this. Why do I blank the moment pressure shows up? Like, I know the thing, I actually studied it, I know it, but then someone says, quick, what's that thing? And I suddenly forgot?
Pressure changes the chemistry of the system that supports me. Working memory relies heavily on prefrontal cortex networks that can keep information active without it being right in front of you. Under stress, the brain shifts priorities towards faster, more reflexive systems. And there are strong reviews showing that even mild, uncontrollable stress can rapidly weaken prefrontal functioning, so it just hinders me. Your knowledge may still exist, but my ability to hold it steady in the spotlight just gets disrupted.
Okay, it's like I had the budget, but then my brain was like, no, we're reassigning this, sorry.
Exactly. And the worst part is that people respond by pushing even harder. They try to hold more, control more, force more. And unfortunately, that usually makes the bench messier. When you're under load, the best move is often to simplify what I'm carrying in real time. And not because you're weak, but because the system has a limit and you're just exceeding it.
Okay, good, I got it. So how do we work with you in a way that doesn't feel like I'm negotiating with a toddler who refuses to hold more than 4 grapes?
You got it a bit wrong. You don't need to live like a minimalist. You just need to stop asking me to be your storage. When something matters, give it an external home quickly. A note, a checklist, a calendar, a single piece where the next step is written clearly so I don't have to keep it hovering. When you're learning, build chunks by linking new information to meaning, because meaningful structure compresses the load. And that is the key. If you remember before, I was talking about chunks. When you're trying to think, reduce the number of open loops you're actively juggling. A task becomes easier when the next action is obvious and the rest is parked safely somewhere you trust. So when you're stressed, also treat me like a sensitive instrument. Fewer simultaneous demands, cleaner cues, slower transitions, because otherwise switching costs are real and stress makes them more expensive.
Yeah, indeed. The last part, I think, is the part that people miss the most. They think memory means you're supposed to brute force it inside your head. But I feel like you're saying the smarter move would be building a system around you.
Yes, definitely. You can help yourself into having a bigger bench, but you can stop piling everything onto it. And when you do, I stop feeling like a bottleneck and start feeling like a sharp tool again.
Working memory, thank you very much. That was very, very insightful. And as we usually do with all the guests that we had so far, if I had to sum up what you said, it's that you're not a warehouse, you're more like a workbench. And most of us keep trying to run our lives with the bench overloaded. Your capacity is definitely smaller than people assume, often around a few meaningful chunks, if I got that right. And chunking is basically the cheat code that makes small feel bigger. Stress and pressure don't erase what you know, they disrupt the ability to keep it active, which is why blanking happens at the worst moments. And the practical answer isn't to force more willpower, it's instead to offload intelligently, making the next step obvious and stop demanding that you hold the entire load at once. So, yeah, thank you very much again. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment. And thank you very much for being here. Welcome back. I hope you managed to enjoy today's episode. Let me know in the comments what are your thoughts, and if you have any questions overall, I'll try my best to reach out to our guest and complete any kind of knowledge gap that might have been there. If you made it so far, thank you very much. As always, feel free to interact with this content in any way, shape, or form by liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. Whatever works for you works for me. And as usual, stay consistent, stay resilient. This was the Shower Podcast, and I'll see you tomorrow with another guest.